Hey, we're going to do roll call. Hey, Commissioner Ian,
Present.
Commissioner Nia,
Present.
Commissioner Lauren,
Here.
and Commissioner Ben here. And any agenda changes, requests, or deletions? None. Hey, one oral communications. I just want to say one thing. We just had dinner with Brittany, who is leaving to Loyola Marymount to pursue her master's. We just had dinner with her, and we presented her a book of Dr. Seuss's "Oh, the Places You'll Go," and I would hope everybody got the chance to sign it. And now she's off to a new adventure, and we just wish her all the best in her future endeavors. And we want her to come back and visit, and she'll be a lifelong advocate for public art, I'm sure. Hey, approval of the minutes for the last meeting of June 20th.
I'll approve the minutes from June 20th.
Hey, a second.
Second.
Hey, any corrections or deletions to the minutes? Hey, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay, abstain? Hey, the motion passes unanimously. Staff comments. Lise?
Okay, great. So we have a few images for you. After the fire in Mitchell Park was treated by Bruce Johnson, the artist who came down to clean it up a little bit, oil it some, and it's looking just beautiful. Just every couple of years it needs a little more oil treatment. It starts looking a little dried out and discolored. So he was able to take care of that. And we're going to have some new wood chips brought in around the base of it. And then for today's entertainment, we were out at the Coverly Fields harvesting synthetic turf for Paz de la Calzada's temporary project in front of King Plaza. Just because the turf was coming out, if we were going to get turf for her to upcycle, today was apparently the day. So we were out there for many hours, and you can see our partners in parks were there. Darren Anderson was also there, but he was actually playing photographer at this moment. And so they were able to come to the rescue with some more tools, mainly a tractor, and some more muscle power. So that was really fun and exhausting. But we got all the turf we needed. We got it cleaned. We've got it bundled. And so Nadia and I will move it to where it's going to be stored on Monday. So we have that. Paz was able to take a section of it with her so she can do her smaller prototype for the Labyrinth project. So that happened today, and Brittany is holding the bat because, as Chair Miyagi mentioned, it was her last day today, and we just kept saying, wow, weirdest last day at work ever. So, yeah, so she enjoyed wielding the bat today a little bit.
She'll never forget it.
Yeah, she won't forget it. That's
Okay.
And then, Brittany last day. Okay, that was it for me. Ha.
All right, thank you, Elise. And first action item is temporary public art, approval of funds in the amount of $47,000 to commission 4 temporary artworks on a construction fence around the California Avenue parking garage.
So if you haven't been over there, that construction site is in full swing. There is a big pit in there. They're hauling out a lot of soil. And so they have a construction fence. So the bottom part of it is that sort of orange, sort of fillable barricade, and then there's plywood up above it. And it was something that came up in our discussions with the CalAv merchants that, of course, they're very concerned about graffiti and also sort of mitigating some of the negative impacts of the construction. It's really impacted their parking. There were concerns that people might be avoiding CalAv because of the construction impacts. So we had discussed with them the possibility of having temporary public art there on vinyl. So having potentially 4 artists, because we have 4 sides to the site, who could create a graphic that then would be translated into vinyl and installed quickly, because these are all active roadways. So if we can go back to the overall You can see there are four main walls there. The largest being on Jacaranda, which is kind of a challenging space because it is an alley and it's an active roadway. But it also is that crossing point by the triptych of murals that we have across from the Starbucks. So it will get visibility. It is really active. And then, of course, Birch Street, which is smaller, but a lot of the cars that come in that way will see it, as well as the parking lot across Birch currently. Ash also is, that one's a very pedestrian-heavy space. On the sidewalk just across the street would be the primary visibility. And then Sherman is opposite the Visa building, so that one actually is one of the cleanest views of that 230 some odd feet. So the thinking is that we've identified a number of artists who work in graphic design in our pre-qualified pool that could be potential candidates for these. The Calev merchants were hoping to have something that's more cohesive rather than having lots of individual things, something that can be sort of calming, soothing, but long and more dynamic rather than having lots of individual things along the way. So we have a number of artists from our pre-qualified pool we could approach for this selection panel. And we were thinking we would have 4 different artists. So each side might have kind of a different vibe or feel to it, but it would offer commissions to 4 artists. So that would cover the fabrication and installation as well as a $4,000 stipend to each of the artists for the graphic design.
Hey, thank you, Elise. Any questions or comments?
Just a quick question on the funding. So I take it we have the funds for this. I don't, unfortunately, have my file with me that shows me how much we have for that, but.
Yes, we have adequate funds both in our temporary public art funding and in the pooled CIP funding that came from the construction project.
Anything else?
Yeah, I've had conversations with vendors on Calev, and they've expressed exactly what a sort of angst about parking and visiting, and so this strikes me as a sort of opportunity for public art, if it can be quick and responsive, to actually demonstrate its value very quickly. So it's very exciting. This is, I'm just making sure I haven't missed it. This just came up, right? This is the first we're discussing it.
This is the first time it's been agendized. I think I mentioned it in passing when we were talking about the public safety building at one time, but this is the first time this item has been discussed with the PAC.
And I mean, I have a sort of a bunch of questions, but just more of a conversation, like not a grilling. So the different views, for instance, in theory, the different artists would work well if you were standing right next to it, and others, if you were the Visa building, it could take in the whole thing. Like this sort of, it's a very dynamic enterprise in terms of engagement, and offers a lot of opportunity. Clearly, so I wonder about that. Is there a sense that they can do this vinyl so that it can be repurposed somewhere else? Like it could go up at Coverly, that sort of thing?
Generally not, because it's going to get very dirty at that site. It's going to get sun faded, and it has to adhere to the plywood. So it's not something that'll really get reused if we do the adhesive vinyl. There is another method that we could explore, but it involves having rivets and sort of tying it into the fence physically. And then there's a question of whether or not it would make sense to reuse it in part somewhere else, because it's really intended as one long piece. But great questions.
Sorry, I
All
just have
things that
one
should be
last one that pops
discussed.
in mind, just because we're talking about the merchants themselves. Is there a way to, would there be, have we previously? Hey, Jim. Have we previously ever had merchants serve on a selection committee? Would that be an odd thing to do?
No, we had them serve on the selection panels for the Calev Garage and the Public
okay,
Safety
alright.
Building. So anytime we do something in that district, we always have a representative from the business community on the panel.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Anything else?
This won't go to panel though, will it? I mean, there won't be a selection panel for this, will there be?
We will probably do a small
Okay.
selection panel as a
Great.
temporary project, but especially since it is in such a sensitive area, we do want to engage the CalAV merchants in it. We probably will do a small panel for it.
Great, thank you.
Now, one of the comments was it was continuous. Would it be one large piece, or would it be smaller pieces that would be tie into each other? Would the artists kind of work with each other, so if you turn the corner, it would kind of tie it in? Or is it just something completely different?
You were reading my mind. These are a lot of the things that we've been wrestling with, and so talking about, given you have different lengths of all of those, each of those facades, and trying to figure out what's most suitable to that facade and how people are most likely going to interact with it. So some of the thinking was we could have a design that could then also be printed in reverse depending on the length of the piece, because you could potentially end up in a situation where you have one artist who's doing a much more detailed design and the printing gets a lot more expensive for 300 linear feet rather than 100 linear feet. And it makes it really complicated. And so however length those panels are in, are things we're sort of talking to fabricators about what makes sense.
Hey, any other questions, comments, Jim?
I have a crazy idea. And we have all those images from Mr. Brown. Have we talked about the idea of doing a tribute to Mr. Brown, like just showing all of them in one place?
I think it's an interesting idea. I think part of the challenge is that these are all on very active roadways, and some of the desire from the merchants was to have something that would flow a bit more than having individual pieces. But that's something that could be discussed. I don't know how people would feel about, the downtown Greg Brown pieces in CalAV, because that is a real change. I mean, it brings up a lot of interesting things that would need to be addressed.
So can I just, go off of your comment?
Yeah, I want to just elaborate a little bit further.
Yeah,
The only reason I suggest it is because this is temporary, and it wouldn't cost us anything. We already own the pieces, and I think it could be a fun, like a tribute. That people may not discover them. You could do stuff where, in addition to having the piece, you could have an explanation, some more context, and this would go away. Like, how long is this for?
For the period of construction, so it would probably be about a year.
A year. Oh, it's really long temporary.
So, yeah, so it would be about a year. And what you're looking at here, for instance, is ash. So this is the roadway. So there's no way to get close to the
You're not gonna
fence,
see it, yeah.
except for on Jacaranda. And that blue part of the fence is only about 40 inches high. So that's why we were thinking a graphic is probably gonna work a little better.
So there's no foot traffic then, really. This is drive-by, so a linear thing. None of his pieces
This-
are that short either.
Yeah, so that one was birch that Nadia was just showing. So that's, you can see go back. So there's the median. So that's just active roadway right there, up against it.
Okay, well, I just.
But we can look for
throw-
opportunities for
throwing-
that.
But it's not necessarily free, they're not on vinyl yet, right? They're images.
Right.
Okay, but it's a great idea to use them. I like that thinking.
Okay, any other comments?
So I was actually going to say, before you mentioned that I was actually thinking if we, not even just Greg Brown, if we could display a lot of other images of other public works of art that we have in our collection. Because I feel like I know I mentioned a while back during our last planning committee of doing banners. But could be another way of promoting that. And then the other question I had though, I do like using public art, but I'm wondering also, I don't know, since a lot of people, general people are not gonna be going into this building. So I'm wondering if, it's a lot of I feel like it's open to the public, but I don't feel like it's a building that a lot of people will be walking into, unless I'm wrong.
This is the garage.
Oh, the garage. But the public, so this is just, sorry, okay. I'm thinking, and then, so the garage, but then where's the public, the building?
Safety?
The safety building.
This is just,
Yeah.
can you pull
This
the
is
map up
temporary.
again?
So maybe, no, but where's, so it's next, this is the garage, around the garage, and then the safety building is, where is it in relation?
It will not begin construction until the completion of the garage, and it will be across Birch Street.
So it's like kitty corner.
Oh, okay, so then maybe this would be something for the next construction. I was just thinking maybe like photographs could be an interesting thing of like even the downtown or like the city or different, I was thinking, the reason I was thinking is I'm blanking on the building again. The name, what is it called?
Public
Public
safety.
safety, of like photos of people in the public safety building. I thought that could be kind of fun, but, maybe that's something to table for later, but, photographs are also fun sometimes too, so.
Or any of these, walking, or will you walk by any of these?
The only one that you can walk close to and not be in such an active space, but it still is along Jacaranda. But that's still dumpsters and cars going back and forth on Jacaranda.
There's no sidewalk right next to
There's
it.
no sidewalk anywhere
then-
around the site
okay.
next to
Makes
any
it
of it.
different, yeah.
So that was part of the challenge coming in, is the sidewalk is also completely barricaded off within the construction site.
So can I ask so when the public safety building starts its construction, will there be another opportunity to do something similar, or is this just a one-time?
Well, there probably will be. Depending on the contractor and what kind of fence they want to use and what kind of signage they need to have on site, it's too premature to promise that we will or won't have that opportunity. If that opportunity presents itself, we would certainly bring it to you.
Okay, because we haven't done this before, that I know of, at least since my time. So I was saying, I mean, this is a really interesting thing to think about. 'Cause
All right, so I have one other crazy idea, and then I'm like reusing art. So I loved the thing we did. I don't know if we have digital images and if we have the rights to them, but you could scale them, and it could be something that could be really cool to do in a linear fashion. We had the piece that was installed on the building here of all the houses, the colors of Palo Alto. You guys remember? You were here then. Could those be repurposed and used? Because driving by that actually I think could be visually pretty interesting, and then it conveys a streetscape, and it is something that is, in driving by, it would be visually really interesting because of the color patterns.
We do not have the rights to those images, and we don't have copies of those images.
Oh, all right, okay. Are we still friendly with the artist?
We're not in touch with the artist.
Okay, all
What
right.
is this piece that you're referring to?
So,
I don't
how long
remember.
ago? Is it like 10 years ago, Elise?
It was about 10 years ago, because when
Wow.
when I moved here in 2008, the project was nearing completion.
Yeah, so someone went and took photographs of the facade of like, I don't know how many buildings it was, but it was hundreds of buildings, and they put them on every single one of on the facade of this building facing Hamilton. And so as you came up, it was really cool. You'd see, it was like colors of Palo Alto. And you saw this really interesting thing, and I don't know, it's just an idea. I'm also trying to think, it would be much less expensive if the images are there, they digitized, than commissioning something new. I don't know, just an idea.
Yeah, interesting.
So I just want to clarify on the budget. Most of this is for fabrication and installation. It's for 4 separate artists to get a $4,000 stipend each.
There's just the vinyl.
The expense is creating, right.
I never mind. So it's just, yeah, I didn't realize that the vinyl itself and the install is that expensive. Okay, so we've got to come up with something, the artist's got to be pretty creative to do something on a $4,000 budget. We probably couldn't even license the things from the house guy for $4,000. Yeah, okay,
Probably not.
yeah, all right, thank you for entertaining me.
It's okay, it seemed clear that there was a piece perhaps that you didn't quite hear. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
One other thing, I was just thinking, it kind of reminds me a little bit too of the walkways, the koi fish that we did.
Oh, yeah.
So it's something, I mean, I don't know if we want to look back at some of the artists that we used for that particular project. But it's just an idea. I was just thinking like, it's kind of like koi fish, swimming down. So anyways, but it's similar to that.
All right, so we have a motion to approve $47,000 for a temporary art for the California Avenue parking garage.
I move to approve.
I have a second?
Second?
Hey, all those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion passes unanimously. The next item is the Victor Artonov
Arnatov.
frescoes update, and we do have a public speaker, David Moss. And sir, you will have 3 minutes.
I'm here to encourage you to preserve. I'm here to encourage you to preserve the Arnatov frescoes in Palo Alto at all cost. For background, for 40 years, my mother has owned an art gallery in LA, Toby C. Moss Gallery, specializing in California artists from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, including Arnatov. Additionally, my cousin Sanford Levinson, a well-known law professor, has written a book called Written in Stone, Public Monuments in Changing Societies, about the taking down of public statues of Lenin and Stalin after the fall of the Soviet Union, and the taking down of Confederate statues and images in the South. He has updated it to talk about the deleting of flawed, famous people whose names graced buildings in prestigious universities. This is a must-read for anyone in public art. Today's meeting is about some of these extremely valuable artworks created through the WPA in the 30s. We can take lessons from the past, and Professor Levinson has 2 lessons. Instead of whitewashing away currently politically sensitive art, do one of 2 things. 1, put plaques and descriptions next to them to encourage discussion and various points of view, like we see in a museum. We are in great need of informed discussion in this world. And what was the world like at that time? What were the complexities that existed at that time? What lessons we can learn from the past so we don't repeat the same mistakes? The second suggestion he makes is to move the art to a museum setting where people are attuned to finding controversial or thought-provoking images to be pondered and discussed and questioned. A place not necessarily in the path of someone going to work or school every single day. Both of these ideas should be explored before we consider whitewashing away history and the past. I look at our own example of Terman and Jordan School. No one will ever again have to confront or discuss the long-term dangerous implications of eugenics. It will be relegated to the dustbin of history. Same with the whitewashing of artwork by James Franco, who has had a big impact on a generation of Palo Alto students and then made mistakes that are also a different valuable lesson for that generation. What a waste that we won't be able to share these valuable lessons with future generations. I don't want you to make the same mistake that the San Francisco School Board made with their Arnatov murals, and instead take advantage of this example to offer other solutions that will allow us to share valuable historic lessons for generations to come. 1, plaques to encourage discussion, and 2, move it to a museum setting. Believe me, this is not going to be the last time you or a Bay Area city or district will be faced with an example like this. Go visit the San Jose Japanese History Museum for an outstanding example of the proper way to preserve art and history as a lesson for future generations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Moss. Okay, Elise, comments on this?
Sure, and I did print out a few different articles on what is taking place in San Francisco. So we wanted to make sure this was on the agenda because it is very timely. There is a series of frescoes by Victor Arnatov in San Francisco at the George Washington High School, and a group came forward and let me just back up. Victor Onatov painted them in such a way that it was a more realistic depiction of who George Washington was, and that not everything he did would hold up to today's standards. And he was a slave owner, and there are dead Native Americans shown in those some of those scenes and whatnot. And it was a more, as Arnotov thought, a more realistic depiction of who George Washington was. There was a group of parents and students who came forward who said that those depictions were traumatizing to their students and to certain segments of the population who frequent that school. There has been a lot of back and forth and a lot of discussion, and ultimately the school board decided they had a number of different options ahead of them. They have decided that they want to move forward with whitewashing the frescoes and destroying them. So that brings us, of course, to our Arnotov frescoes, which are not being considered for destruction or whitewashing. As the commission may recall, we have engaged the same conservator who worked on Arnotov's frescoes that are in Coit Tower to come evaluate these and give us an estimate for what it would take to protect them during the renovation of the Roth building for the Historical Museum, and then also to have them restored once the construction nears completion. That is still the plan. The update I wanted to give the commission on these pieces that we have here in Palo Alto is that the Historical Museum is really moving forward. They are looking to pull some building permits in the next few months. And so we've been in contact with the director there. We're collaborating on a grant application, which is due, I think, in 2 weeks, for potential funding for the complete restoration of these pieces. It will be about $100,000 for the restoration. That doesn't include what's required to protect them during construction. But I did want to alert the commission that that is moving forward, and just wanted to bring this matter to the commission's attention because it is topical. It is all over the news right now, and there might be some questions about our Onotovs. So that's all. I just wanted to open it as a discussion item. It's a non-action item.
Thank you, Elise. Any comments or questions?
I do have one, yeah. Because you can envision the daily Post article that says Palo Alto puts $100,000 into refurbishing frescoes that San Francisco Board of Education has decided to destroy. And so just to get clarity on the issue, I've been following it, but this would be helpful. The issue, we could agree or not agree with the decision, is with the content of those frescoes themselves, not with the artist. Correct?
That is an adequate summary, yes.
Okay.
That it's with the content of those frescoes.
So in theory, if there were an issue with the Palo Alto frescoes, it would have to be with the content, again, and not with Arnotov.
Yes, for us to go through a deaccession process, there has to be clear criteria for that, and these frescoes do not meet any of that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I would say for the record, for myself, that I'd like to see an approach, if we were to encounter the situation in anything in our collection, that we have an educate and inform rather than a remove or relocate. And that's be a general, I think that anything you're going to look at on a case-by-case basis, but as a general rule, that would be my recommendation.
I will just add, since Nadia has this slide up, that there was controversy when these were installed because the Roth building was the Palo Alto Medical facility. And so it shows modern medicine in the more colorful sections. So use of x-ray, anesthesia. And then below there are more primitive methods of healing. So bleeding, here they're casting out the demons. And so the controversy was never with any of that. It was simply because there is an unclothed female torso. And so apparently when they were first unveiled, there were cars lined up down Homer to have a look. And there were some people who wouldn't enter the building to seek treatment there because they didn't want to walk by the torso. But as far as I know, there's no controversy about depictions of violence in our frescoes.
Just a comment, that I would ask that you remind us how these came into our collection, because it was just recent that we got these frescoes in our collection, is that correct?
It was after the city acquired the Roth building. They made a decision to acquire the building. And the frescoes had never been officially accessioned into the collection. And so it was a bit of our housekeeping to accession them so that they were part of our collection, that we would maintain them and care for them.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Elise. This has been been in the news a lot lately, and it's a good topic to discuss and what we want to do, so thank you very much. Okay, so any announcements? Okay, our next meeting is August 15th. Please mark that on your calendar. Any other announcements?
I will just say, it's not an announcement, just a comment, that on NPR, there was a very interesting report about street murals. I don't know, did you hear it? Yeah, well, it was sidewalk, crosswalk. I keep forgetting that, I wanna say sidewalks, but the crosswalks, and I wanna say it was New York, somewhere in it may be Pittsburgh, I forget, but somewhere back east. And so anyways, it was really fun, and to just know that we're also doing that was fun. And so I thought it's something that we should definitely think about, maybe further down. So if you haven't checked it out, you should find it on NPR.
Hey, thank you.
Just a very quick announcement. We're still looking for commissioners' availability for the September annual retreat. So please, if you haven't had a chance to let me know which date works for you, do so, and we'll confirm the date soon.
Hey, thank you, Nadia. All right, please get your, if you haven't already, for the retreat, so we can start the planning on that. And thank you very much, everyone. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.